Good morning. This is Katrina Ellis from Financial Wellness Academy, and thank you for joining me today to do a quick catch up on the main topics that we've covered during the week. So I will aim to get this kind of covered in about the half an hour max, hopefully. And for those of you I know who maybe struggled to get to be able to attend during the week with other commitments, etc., this is a great opportunity to one-stop shop, have an overview of the main points that we raised from the week, and get yourself thinking with some downtime, hopefully this weekend, as to how potentially you can use this information to really start to make a difference in your own financial wellness. And everything I share with you will be, there's no rocket science in it. It's very straightforward, simple information. It's based on my own experience, which I'll share more with you about as we go through this. And maybe some of you are listening in because you want a recap. You've joined me during the week and you just want a summary of all the different pieces that we have talked through. So let's get going. So in the very first session on Monday, the main piece that we discussed was around understanding what financial wellness means to you. And that is very individual, it's very personal, and no two financial wellness visions will be exactly identical. A bit like us as individuals, we for sure have similarities, but we have our own particular personality and uniqueness about us. And that's exactly true with our financial wellness. So, a key step to your financial wellness is understanding that what that means to you, okay, and getting clear on that. We'll cover that in a little bit more detail as we go through the 5 pillars piece. The picture that you see in the slide is my home, the town I'm lucky enough to call home, and this is just at the end of my street. I can see the harbour at my window, and for me, this was a vision for quite some time, and it became a reality in 2015 when we moved to the Isle of Man. And at that time, I lived in the countryside in a beautiful house, detached house in the countryside. But I always had this desire to be beside water. Didn't know why. Had grown up on a farm, country girl. We were the county that was farthest away from the sea on all sides. And for whatever reason, I'm a fire sign, and definitely in Ayurvedic terms, fire is my predominant element. So water is something that's very calming to me, and I knew for some inexplicable reason I had to be near it. And so we moved here in 2015 for that reason, for a job reason, and so this every time I drive in to my home, be it in the day or at night, and even if it's stormy days, this picture to me makes me smile every time. It's just it's a huge part of my financial vision, and it was something that was just an idea not so long ago. So just to show you the power as to what getting clarity on that vision means, it's hugely important. Okay. So to give you a little bit of context where I've come from in my journey in terms of financial wellness. So the house that you see on the screen in front of you is my home, um, up until end of 2015 when we moved here. So it was a beautiful house. It's a house that when we first viewed, I immediately fell in love with it. It's detached, middle of the countryside, really beautiful area. And we had 3 small kids at the time. We had 1 small kid when we bought it, 3 when we left. 2 were born in that house, and it was just a beautiful place to bring up kids. It was secure, it was safe, and it was all good. And I fell in love with it very quickly. But in that time when I lived in that house between 2009 and 2015, we had two more children born there, and financially it was a very stressful time. But for anybody from the outside looking in, it seemed like, husband is an airline pilot, 3 small beautiful healthy kids, a beautiful house, everything looked great. But inside what was going on inside the house, inside me, was financial stress. It was a 100% mortgage on this house. I was a bank employee, and so I had the benefit of availing of 100% mortgage. And then we also had it on another house in Dublin, which we'd moved from, and were unable to sell because of the timing in the market, which turned out to be a good thing in the longer term. So it felt like 2 huge nooses around our necks. And it was at 2 of my kids were born in October, and it was at their birthday party in October in this house. We had a big party in the house and lots of family and friends coming. And the morning of that birthday, birthday party for the two of them, two letters arrived on the doorstep from the bank saying that our variable mortgage on this house and our house in Dublin had been increased by 0.5%. There had been no change to the ECB rate. And out of the blue, the bank, for in recovery response to the 0809 crash, were trying to recoup some losses, and so this is what they did, and it literally took my breath away. I could feel myself starting to get anxiety, tightness on my chest. What are we going to do? We were already kind of very stretched with one income. I had given up my job at that stage. I had resigned, and it was really, really tight. How are we going to make this work? And I felt the noose tighten tighter when those letters dropped in, and the party went on, and it was percolating my head all the time. I wasn't fully present at the party because I was thinking, oh my God, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So that for me was a turning point. I thought, no more. Okay, something has to change. I am not going to spend my nights tossing and turning, anxious about money, looking to the future with three small kids who are our dependents, and how can we provide for them? And it all seemed very depressing and very difficult, and I couldn't see a way out. But I was determined to find one. And once I set my mind to that, then as these things happen, I find a mentor appeared out of the woodwork to me, her name, and I bought her book, ate it up. I read it maybe 2 times on the bounce. It was really easy reading, made so much sense. I came from a background of my degrees in Bachelor of Commerce. I had worked for the bank in various countries, Ireland, UK, Australia, for over 10, 12 years. So I was very comfortable with numbers. I had been to university to study business, yet I knew none of what she was teaching. And it just was a bit of a mystery, but I parked that piece of it for the moment and just got stuck in and making the changes to what I could do to improve my own financial wellness for that myself and my family. And it was, yeah, that point in time was tough. It was stretched. It was a case of, well, how are you going to get out of this? But it began with the decision. When the pain got intense, something has to change. And that decision then led to my education around financial wellness, around improving my financial literacy, and in continually taking action. And by action, I mean, for the large part, it was small little baby steps. It was deciding to buy that book. It was reading that book. It was applying some of the actions out of it. And from there on out, things slowly but surely started to turn. And I'll share more about that in the 5 pillars as to how that came to pass. But we went from that position in terms of what I would describe as financial desperation, even though externally it all looked great. Internally, it wasn't. And that's very often the case with people, and very normal. And now we're in the position of we have 7 buy-to-let properties, 6 of which we've bought in the Northeast in a 12-month period, and they're all yielding very positively, each £500 per month after mortgage and after letting fee. So that's pretty handy. And the massive biggest bonus for me on that is that somebody else takes care of those. I don't have any hand in it. It's very hands-free property investment, which is something I love. Where I'm sitting, we have converted, it's part of our home, we've converted into a self-contained Airbnb studio, and that is taking care of our mortgage. And we are, working on the occupancy on that. I have multiple streams of income now, I have a number of different businesses, and I'm very well diversified. And it was between that point, so that, I can't remember exactly, I think it was 2000 and, it's probably 2013, 14 when I made that decision, and things started to change. And then 2015, big year for us. We decided, with everything we were trying to do, opportunity came up in terms of a job here in the Isle of Man, and we moved. So immediately, take-home pay doesn't change. Our gross pay didn't change, but take-home pay massively jumped when we went into a different tax jurisdiction. Game changer. Our kids settled pretty quickly in a new place, and they've put down roots. They're beside the beach. We live in a beautiful place. It is safe, more so, and it was, that was overnight. 2020 then hit, affected us all in so many different ways. Our one stream of income at that time wiped out. My husband's an airline pilot, gone. and we had zero furlough here. So we were receiving £200 a week for a family of five. We had no other source of income. Thankfully, because of the work we'd done in the previous 5 years to that, we had good savings. So we were never worried about paying the mortgage or the bills or putting food on the table or any of that. But massive oversight that we had once one source of income and it was wiped, and it was in an industry that was very, very unsteady. Subsequently, what happened with that was he was redeployed and had to go off island for 6 months or so. And then the company went bust. So the income was gone totally. Thankfully, he was lucky enough to find another job. But in that interim, from the very immediate first shock when that income was wiped out, I thought, right, this is pain again. I'm not experiencing this again. What do I do to add other sources of income? So this project, the Airbnb, was one. And from an inception, I had that idea in 2019. It took until nearly 2.5 years to bring it to life. But, and that is the way things happen. But the idea is the key point. The 6 buy-to-lets happened between December 2020 and January 2022. So just over a 12-month period. And then the other streams were added in that interim as well. But again, it was pain, intense pain of having that one income wiped out that really spurred me to action to go, right, something has to change. So I've been through many, many challenges. It was very easy for me to look outside, to blame, to give up, to throw in the towel, to try and seek support from third parties. But I knew that I had to take responsibility and I needed to sort this. And so that's what I did. So we've been through a lot of challenges financially. Everybody's been affected by COVID and how it's affected families in lots of different ways. But it's your reaction to that. How do you respond? That really is the game changer between whether, you sink or swim, really. So it's been a long journey. The journey continues. For me, it's not a case of, put these things in place and it's sorted. It's something, I guess, I would use the analogy of your own personal wellness in terms of your physical, mental, emotional wellness. They're things that need to be tended to be cared for on an ongoing basis. But when you have them in a good place, they become habits, and the financial wellness is no different. When you have it in a good position and you have some really good habits in place and some good practices and some diversification of income, then it becomes a lot easier to take care of. But it's an ongoing thing. It doesn't require a huge amount of your time from the beginning when you set it up. There's a particular, I suppose, crunch time at the beginning where you're getting everything in place, and there's a bit of work involved in that, and that's to be expected. Nothing is handed on a plate. But when you have the foundation in, it's a maintenance piece that you have in place to take care of it from there on out. And I suppose that's the point I want to get across, is that it's very accessible to anybody, and that's the message in what I do, regardless of your age, your stage, your circumstances, whatever the history is. Everybody has the option to access this. And I know we have the added challenge right now of the cost of living crisis, but I see that as being no different. The principles, the habits, they're all the same. So let's get stuck into those and walk you through those. So 5 pillars to financial wellness. The first one I talked about a little bit in the beginning around having that vision. And that is so key to understanding where you want to go. Because use the analogy of, you being on a boat or in a car or any kind of vehicle, and you want to get from A to B. But unless you know where B is specifically, then you will drive or navigate yourself, and you don't know where you're going to end up. So you need to be very clear as to what that end point was. And I reiterated this a number of times during the week, that B doesn't need to be a set point for the rest of your life. It can be a movable point. You can navigate from A to B, and then once you get to B, then you can put C into the sat nav or your GPS, whatever, and you can go onward. So that doesn't become a point where you stop unless you want to, and you're happy with where you're at. But it's key to understanding, to identifying that first point that you want to find yourself at. because then what happens then is you know where you are and you know where you want to be. Then you have an idea as to how you can plot that route. So what are the potential solutions that you could come up with that can get you from point A to point B? It will also simplify your decisions. So when presented with something, an option, and if it is aligned with getting you to point B, great, it's a yes. If it is going to take you off on a tangent that doesn't really make sense, then it's a clear no. So your decision making around this stuff becomes a lot easier, and that is very invaluable. So if the only thing that you take from this session is the importance of understanding, of getting clarity on that vision for what your financial wellness looks like, then that would be a massive win in my books, because that is where it all starts. And about twice a year at least, I try and do, I run myself through a little short guided meditation around getting clarity on that. And it does change, I know, to a degree, it has changed over the years as I've made progress on the path. But what that does is it reinvigorates my whole body, my mind, everything more tuned into what it is my next step. And then every single time I do it, something kind of random pops up. Person presents themselves with something that I had actually was just thinking about. And it has happened for me with houses by the sea that I want to live in, out on a walk, walk by, see a to let sign, think, well, it's out of our price range, inquire, no, it's not actually. And it has enough bedrooms and it has everything we need. All sorts of little coincidences. So bottom line to pillar one, take some time out and get yourself that clarity as to what that end goal looks like for you. And then the path will become a lot clearer once you have that clarity. Okay. So one thing from today, take some time out, be it on a walk. If you like to do a little meditation, do it that way in the shower, whatever works for you. Just get yourself some time to think out what that would look like. Okay. So pillar two, and it may seem very obvious, it may seem a bit inconsequential, but again, each of these pillars has been pivotal. As I looked back, when I was putting these programs together, as I looked back on my own journey on financial wellness, it was obvious to me the five things that jumped out that were really make or break, as to they were pivotal to me making success, and they're ordered in the way I've ordered them for a reason. So the vision is absolutely key, because the rest of it is very difficult if you don't know where you're going. Secondly, your relationship. So if you have a very unhealthy relationship with money, then it is difficult to foster any kind of passion or joy or enjoyment about working on your financial wellness. And the analogy I like to use that best explains this is around friendship. If you have a friend who doesn't respond to your messages, doesn't show up when they're supposed to show up, really has little care or regard for your time and your friendship, then it's likely that you're not going to hang around too much longer in that friendship. And money is the same. When you pay no attention to where it comes from, no gratitude towards it, when you have no idea really in any great detail as to where it goes, then that's the same kind of energy as would be in the friendship I described. So, but when you pay attention, when first of all you're grateful for everything that comes into your life, and you pay attention to what goes out. And I may sound a little crazy in saying this, but in paying my bills, I pay my bills with gratitude. I don't pay it ever with resentment, because whatever I'm paying for, be it um, house insurance to keep us all safe in the house, and if anything were to happen, to make sure it's cared for, to car insurance to keep us safe in the car, in terms of if there was an accident, that it would be taken care of financially. All of those things I pay joyfully, because they give me benefits that I really appreciate and I'm grateful for. The paying my electricity, it gives me power. It gives me the ability to connect with people. Paying my Wi-Fi, my fiber broadband, it gives me the possibility to connect, to do my work that really fulfills me. So all of those things I genuinely pay joyfully. And that is a game changer in terms of your money and your dynamic with it. And when you feel like that about your money, that radiates. And when you meet somebody and they have an energy about them in a really nice way, and you can't help but being almost that charisma draws you in, and you want to talk to that person, you want to spend time with that person. But equally, when you meet somebody who has a very dreary, depressed, just really a bad energy, slagging people off, that just pulls you down, you can't get away from there fast enough. So money is the same, I think, and this may put me in the la space, but I've experienced it on a regular basis, and every time I lean into this, it responds in kind. So I have a very healthy relationship with money. I would say there's always work to do. I can always go to a next level for sure. It's not perfect without a shadow of a doubt, but I have a very good relationship with it largely. Gratitude plays a huge part in that. And a very simple practice that I use around money and my healthy relationship is before I go to bed, I run through in my head all the things I'm grateful for. Having a beautiful home to live in, having three young, healthy, happy children, having money to pay all my bills. I list all those things out that I am really grateful for. So having a relationship, a healthy relationship with your money is absolutely key. Okay. So let's move on. I'm conscious of time. Pillar 3. This is in the middle for a reason. It's a very chunky one, and there's 3 main pieces. Your annual savings, which I was a huge source of pain for me when those ad hoc bills would come in, and ends meet was difficult on a monthly basis. But when one of these would drop in, it was just created chaos. And so to counteract that, I created a small account. I added up all the ad hoc bills that came in. Let's say, for example, for ease, they came to £1,200. I divided by 12 months. So I said, okay, if I need to cover these on an annual basis, every month I need to put away £100. So then going forward from that point in 2015 to now, I have that account there, and it takes care of all those things that are not monthly. So now I've added in not just the essentials. I add in Christmas, birthdays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, our holidays, replacement tech, replacement cars, any big holidays that we're saving to, for a number of years away. Anything that is not monthly basically goes in there, and that pot is transferred into the main account when one of those hits. And the sense of relief and peace that gives is amazing. Okay. Emergency fund. So this is a separate account that I have for things that you really can't foresee happening. The washing machine goes bust, the oven breaks, whatever. You have that money there, and you transfer it when you need it. Typically, for me, I like to have about 3 months of my essential expenses in there to cover whatever it is. But for other people, it might be a higher number. So for my husband, he wanted 9 months. I wanted 3, so we went with his higher number. So we have a higher number in that account to cover emergencies. Retirement piece. Again, it's another big piece. I like to try and simplify it. It's an area that's filled with a lot of fear. I look at it very simply. I look at my vision of my retirement, what it looks like, and what I would need each month to live the life at the level that I want. I look at what I have. I see the gap, and I go, okay, well, how am I going to address that? And for me, property has been a big part of that. I have my own private pension also. Hopefully there'll be a state pension, but I wouldn't bank on that. And I look at the other streams of income, this being one, the Airbnb, the other property, the buy-to-lets being another. And so that's how I address that. And that's my very simple approach to retirement. Yes, you can get more complex with that, but to get your head out of the sand and do something with it, that's a really good starting point. Okay. So pillar number 4 is around protection. And whilst everything is rosy and going well, there will be times when things don't go as well, and you need that protection in place. Protection does not need to cost you a fortune. I think the protection we have at the moment, all we need based on our needs, is about £34 or something a month, something quite small. What generally is the case in the protection space is that people are either way overinsured or underinsured, or not at all. It's very rare to find protection that is exactly meeting the needs of the individual. The job largely of the insurance industry is to sell you insurance. There are absolutely some really amazing brokers and agents out there who will just give you what you need, but unfortunately they are in the minority. I'm sad to say, I've had experienced it myself time and time again, and that's fine. They've got a business to run, but the responsibility, I feel, falls on the individual to make sure that you're not being over or undersold, that you have the exact right amount that you need. And if you have dependents, it's all the more important. If you don't have dependents, it's less of an issue, but it's something that you need to understand. Including in the protection space, I would also include your will, making sure that you have a will in place and a powers of attorney, because the hassle, the cost of that emotionally to those who are left behind when one isn't in place is enormous. So I can't emphasize that enough. And people often think that there's needs to be huge expense involved in that. I work with a lady based in the Northwest who, I think the single wills are somewhere around 120, 130, and I think joints maybe 200, or the mirror wills. So they don't have to be hugely expensive to put them in place, but the savings in terms of emotional costs to those left behind when one is in place is enormous. So I can't encourage you enough to get that sorted if you haven't already. The last pillar then is around debt. And debt to a lot of people is a word that they feel is a bad word, is a word that has a lot of negativity around it. To me, it has polarity. There's good debt and there's bad debt. Bad debt, I would class as any kind of consumer loans, credit cards, car loans, anything that costs you money but that doesn't bring any money into your life. Your mortgage, I would put in the neutral space, unless like you are generating money from your mortgage, your home, then it is kind of neutral debt. You are over time probably building up equity in it that you can potentially pull out, or so that you don't have to pay mortgage in the future in your retirement years. But largely, it sits in that space. Good debt then is the likes of investment properties. So the buy-to-lets that I mentioned to you, or so where you take debt and the cost of that debt is, let's say it's 500, but you're earning 1,000 from the rental property that you have. So you have twice the coverage of what the debt costs you in the rental income that's coming into it. And that's an amazing place to be. And for me, that's a large part of my retirement. So we've covered the 5 pillars very quickly. I want to cover the 5 mistakes, and I'll run through these quite briefly. They're they're very simple things, and there will be overlap in what we've discussed throughout the earlier parts of the call. So one of them is around people give away their power on their money. So they expect their partner, husband, whoever, or a third party in terms of their employer or the government or whatever, to take care of it. And that is very foolhardy. And that was reiterated, that lesson to me in 2020 when we had an income wiped. You would expect, having paid taxes, national insurance, etc., that the government would be able to help. No, we got zip help. That £200 was based on specifically COVID, nothing else. We couldn't get child benefit. We couldn't get any kind of support from the government. And that reiterated to me the importance of having numerous sources of incomes, and the importance of always taking responsibility myself for my finances, and never depending that if I become sick or I can't work, that somebody else is going to take care of me. Those days are gone, I think, sadly, and you need to make sure that you take that responsibility. So that's the number one mistake I see people taking, is somebody else will take care of it. No, the responsibility lies with you 100%. Mistake number 2, they give up with challenges. So, I've outlined quite a lot of challenges I have encountered over the last number of years, and they're ongoing. I don't see those as, I'm sure they will continue in various forms, but it's around your mindset towards this. And and that's not to say that when a challenge hits, when COVID hit us first and we lost our income, it took me, I would say, about 10 days to steady myself and have any kind of presence of mind to figure out, okay, how are we going to get out of this? How are we going to solve this? So, it's not to say that you shouldn't, there isn't an emotional impact on that. There is, absolutely. You need to provide for that and steady the ship. Wait until it's like taking a snow globe and somebody shaking it when you have one of those challenges. But don't make any decision in that state of flux. Let it settle. Let the dust settle on it, and then when you have clarity and peace, presence of mind to make some really good decisions, then make a plan from there. Okay, but your mindset is a huge part of that. Okay. Mistake number 3, I see people focusing all the time on the short term. Where are we going on the next holiday? What are we doing for Christmas? All these kind of things. But when you ask about retirement or any future provision, no, don't want to talk about it. My government pension will be fine. Well, if there's government pension, it may not be. And look at the inflation rate at the moment. Again, you need that balance. And that's not to say that you don't live in it now and enjoy your life. Absolutely, it's about getting that balance between the two, so that you are enjoying life every single day to the full, but that you know also you have peace of mind that the future is taken care of, and getting that balance right is important. So yes, enjoy the here and now, but don't rob yourself today, rob your future by the actions of today. Okay. Mistake number four then is I talked quite a bit about this in terms of your unhealthy relationship with money. So people have an unhealthy relationship with money. Sometimes that can go back to how we were raised, our primary caregivers, the messages we got around money, and there's work to do on that. And that's all doable. I've been there myself, and it is an onion type scenario. You keep going through the layers of it as more emerges. But I see people regularly use this as an excuse to say, "Oh, but I didn't come from money, whatever." Well, neither did I. But the responsibility is on you to educate yourself and to change those limiting beliefs and move on. They are not, you can use them as excuses, but they're not, most definitely not going to help you with your financial wellness if you use them in that way. So you need to create that healthy relationship with money. Mistake number five, then the last one, is around no diversification. So you put all your eggs in one basket, hoping, praying that everything is going to be fine, and then that income source, whatever that asset, that it's wiped, and you're very exposed. So that was a very acute lesson to me in the last couple of years, and why I've been on steroids, I guess, for in terms of energy and action for the last 2.5 years, putting multiple streams. So I wasn't just going to add one or two. I think at last count is about 6 or 7 now, because I thought, never again, never, never, never again am I going to feel that pain. Am I going to have that impact on my kids? And so we took care of it. So yeah, no diversification means you're increasing your risk, makes you hugely more vulnerable, and it's something that needs thought about, and it's not something that you can just click a finger and it's sorted. The idea was 3 years ago when I had this idea of converting this space, but it took time with planning and builders and COVID and all the complications in between to bring it to fruition. So have the idea now, come up with the solutions now. You don't necessarily know how right now, but have the idea of what potentially you could do. Some of those things will work out and some of them won't. I've had lots of things that are bombed too. And that's okay too. That's part of the learning. You take the lessons from it and you move on. So, diversification is so important, and avoiding putting all your eggs in one basket. Okay. So, I have very quickly gone through the last part of that. I think I probably spent a little bit more time up front, explaining the front end of it, which I think, you can look back at this, you'll have access to the recording, the email will go out later with the recording, and you can come back to that. If you do have any questions, do let me know. Press reply on any of the emails and let me know your thoughts. I would love to know what your biggest takeaway from today's session was, today's catch up. And more importantly, having the time to get clarity on what that one action is. Like, what is that one thing? There's more than likely a number of things that jumped out of you that really resonated with you. That's me. I need to do that. What are those things that struck you today as I talk through this content? I'd love to know your thoughts. More importantly, let me know what action you're going to take. And if it's just one thing, what is that one thing that you're going to do as a result of spending that time with me this morning? So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining me. I will be doing another catch up tomorrow night for anybody else who hasn't had a chance to access this one. If you have any thoughts, drop them in an email to me. Really, I love nothing more than hearing from people who are getting benefit from this and understanding what your key takeaways are, because that's really helpful to me in terms of content and future sessions. I do this twice a year. So have a lovely weekend. I hope I've given you food for thought. Do share with me your thoughts, and if you want to listen to it again, come join me tomorrow at 7 p.m. where I'll be running through this content again. There's always I don't script it. I kind of have my headlines. So depending on what pops into my head under that particular topic, you might hear something different tomorrow. So you're very welcome to join me tomorrow, 7 p.m. same place, and a link will be in the email just before as well. It will be sent out. So have a great weekend and talk to you soon. Bye bye.